Good afternoon. We're back with more Marvel Champions, and today will be a card review of the Ironheart Hero Pack. I liked Nova a lot. I don't think he was S tier, but he's a lot of fun. So we're off to a great start for the player cards this cycle with Ghost Spider, Miles Morales, and Nova. Let's take a look at Ironheart. She has 3 recovery. Rory Williams is her alter ego. Begin the game with this card. Set your other identities aside. Okay. Spend a science resource. Place 1 progress counter on Rory Williams once per round. Hand size 6, hit points 10. We'll have to take a look at the rest of her to see what that does. There's 3 versions of her alter ego for her upgrade forms, version 1, 2, and 3. So version 2 alter ego, spend a science resource or 2 resources of any type to place 1 progress. Version 3, spend 1 resource of any type, place 1 progress. Each has 6 hand size, 10 hit points. Version 1 of Ironheart, 6 stats, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 defense. This is an upgrade champion, so starting at 6 as a base is really good. That's where we'd like her to be. Remove 6 progress counters from Ironheart, ready her, and swap her with version 2. This version has hand size 4. So that's a big limitation. I would say if you have to stay in hand size 4 for any more than a round, maybe 2, you're going to be in trouble at higher difficulties. Version 2 has 7 stats, which is the best in the game, I think, off the top of my head. And once again, action, remove 6 progress counters, ready her and give her a tough status card and swap her with version 3. She has hand size 5 in version 2. Version 3 has 8 stats, that's incredible. 3 thwart, 2 attack, 3 defense. Good at everything, remove 1 progress counter to deal 2 damage to an enemy, and she has hand size 6. But we're looking at a ramp champion, so with ramp champions we ask ourselves, how high is their ceiling? And how long does it take to get to that ceiling? How quickly can we get to her ceiling? And we'll have to see her hero cards to know that for sure, because the only way we've seen to add progress counters right now is alter ego, and we don't want to use that in solo. Her hero specific ally is Brawn, 4 cost, 2 thwart, 3 attack. While Brawn is exhausted, he gains generate a science resource once per phase. Okay, so that basically drops his cost to 2. Possibly 1 if you don't want to use him to chump block. That's a really, really strong ally. This is one of the best hero-specific allies in the game. And he's really, really good. As long as you can make use of his science resource, and you always will be able to. Well, no, you won't always be able to. You would always be able to if Ruri was in her alter ego form, but I mean, you'll always be able to use his resource, right? Maybe not on the turn that you play him. And he could be hard to play if you're in version 1 of Ironheart. He'll get thrown away in that situation, so he's a later game card. But yeah, that's a really, really strong ally. Flyover, 2 cost event. Remove 3 thwart from a scheme and place 1 progress counter on Ironheart. 2 instead if this thwart removes the last threat from that scheme. Okay. So you need 3 of those to upgrade Ironheart. Without the progress tokens, this isn't very good. So how do we value the progress tokens? They add 1 to her, 6 of them adds 1 to her stats. I'd probably value 2 progress tokens at like 1 additional threat. Roughly. But, well, no, I doubt that's accurate. It'd be more like, I don't know, half a threat per use of her hero power or something like that. I don't know. This is hard to evaluate progress counters, but there's little doubt that this has ramp potential. So the longer you're using Ironheart, the longer the game goes, the more value this card has, because the progress counters gain consistent value each turn when you're able to use them to upgrade Rory Williams, because then you gain an additional card in your hand every turn and one to her stats. So this is a card that gets better as the longer the game goes on. And I think when all is said and done, it's likely to end up being a really good card for that reason. If you were to draw it in the late game, and you got 3 threat and 4 damage, because you can remove 1 progress token from version 3 to deal 2 damage, so you'd get 3 threat and 4 damage for your 2 cost. That's incredible. That's really good. I wouldn't say it's incredible. It's really good, though. So I would say this is a really good event. Get 2 of them. Photon Beam. Deal 4 damage to an enemy and place 1 progress counter. 2 if this attack defeats an enemy. Once again, in the late game, 4 damage plus 4 damage would be 8 damage for 2 cost. That's really good. If you're using it to upgrade her to get to the end game, that's going to be a ramp card, and it's going to be better the longer the game goes on. So I'd say these 2 events are both really good and are going to be really important to getting progress counters on Ironheart. New and improved. Hero action. Choose X different options where X is equal to Ironheart's version number. Can you choose the same option twice? Search your deck for an Ironheart card and add it to your hand. Give Ironheart a tough status card. Ready Ironheart. Well, if you have to choose a different option each time, it's good. If you're in version 3, it's not that good if you're any less than version 3. If you could choose the same option twice, it's not that good. It's not that good unless you're in version 3. Otherwise, it's overcosted. And it's not going to help you get to version 3. But once you get there, it's pretty good. Sector Scan. Reduce the cost to play by X, where X is equal to Ironheart's version number. So this could cost 0. Until the end of the round, you may look at the top card of the encounter deck at any time. Okay, 0 cost for that. It might help you formulate a strategy in some cases. Change a decision here and there. Probably not that often, though. I don't really value scrying that highly. Unless you have a card that specifically combos off of the top card of the encounter deck and you need to know if it's going to work or not. But we haven't really seen any of those yet in Marvel Champions. There was some in Lord of the Rings LCG, but we haven't seen any of those in Marvel Champions. So we'll put a pin in this until such time as we do. Otherwise, I don't put a lot of value on that. It might occasionally come in handy, though. Stroke of Genius. After you spend this card, place 1 progress counter on your identity and draw 1 card. That's a great card. Love it. Very, very good. Ronnie Williams support. Exhaust Ronnie Williams. Choose heal 2 damage or place 1 progress counter, but it's only an alter ego action. Okay. It's going to get played if we draw it on turn 1. That's pretty certain. Otherwise, sometimes it will, often it won't, because that's the case with all alter ego supports when you're playing true solo. Tony Stark AI, 2-cost support. Exhaust Tony Stark AI. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand and discard the other. Okay, so it's draw 1 card, but you get to choose which card you draw. That's a great support card, always going to get played. Very, very good card, one of the best in her kit. Photon Blasters, 2-cost upgrade. You get +2 hit points. Exhaust Photon Blasters, deal damage to an enemy equal to Ironheart's version number. Okay, that's really strong. That's really, really strong. With Iron Man's powered gauntlets, they cost 2. We don't get 2 hit points, and they just deal 1 damage per round, or 2 if you're aerial. But they do add 1 to his hand size. 3 damage. If you're in phase 3, 3 damage alone, just taking away the hit points. 3 damage per action is really, really strong. Even 2 damage per action is very strong with the +2 hit points. So this is a very good card. Will always get played when it's drawn. Propulsion Jets, 2 cost upgrade. Another +2 hit points. Exhaust Propulsion Jets, remove threat from a scheme equal to Ironheart's version number. Another very strong card that's always getting played when we draw it. Ironheart looks to me, let's see, what is her... But she doesn't gain hit points as she gains version number. Okay. She is a champion. And the hand size goes up to 6. Well, the only question concerning Ironheart is how quickly she gets to her version 2. At least, because she's weak in version 1 due to the low hand size. And she's going to gain versions more rapidly as the game goes along, because once you get out of version 2 into version 3, then you get 1 additional card in hand to help you gain versions. So the only ways that we have to do that in hero mode are Flyover, Photon Beam, and Stroke of Genius. And Flyover is going to be the more reliable one, because you can nearly always count on there being threat to remove. You can't always count on there being an enemy to defeat. There's always an enemy, but not always an enemy to defeat. So Flyover is the one that we'll want to see more often combined with Stroke of Genius. So we would need like a Flyover, a Stroke of Genius, and then another Flyover and a Stroke of Genius, or a Flyover and a Photon Beam and 2 Strokes of Genius, or some combination thereof to get to version 2. How quickly that will happen is going to be the deciding factor in how good Riri Williams is. But she does have a very high ceiling. So she will be capable of defeating the most difficult quests in the game when she gets her high roll. The only question is, how often will she get her high roll? And we'll need to play her to find out, but I think we're looking at an S tier hero. So we'll have to test her to be certain, but I think we're looking at an S tier hero because of her very high ceiling with the 3-2-3 stats, with the progress tokens getting converted into damage, and with her very strong upgrades when she's in version 3. And the hand size 6 as well. These are all the tools we're looking for from a tier 3 hero, or from an S tier hero. And so the only question is, how often can you get that high roll and get into version 2 or 3 quickly? Let's take a look at the other cards that come in her hero pack. We've got leadership cards. Cloud 9, 3 cost ally, 1/1 stats, exhaust Cloud 9, choose a player. Until the end of the phase, each aerial character that player controls gets +1 thwart. So we're introducing yet another synergy. Introducing so many synergies may mean they all end up a little undeveloped. I was thinking that this cycle would develop further the Web Warriors and the Shield cards, but Shield hasn't been developed at all since the expansion. Web Warriors haven't been developed. Instead, a new synergy was introduced in Nova's hero pack, which was Champions. And now we're seeing aerial synergy developed. You'd probably need to have like 2 aerial characters to take advantage of this for this hero to be alright, and that's not too difficult considering she doesn't take any damage to give that buff. But you don't really need 2 different characters to have 1 additional thwart very often. Well, if this is the only card that develops the aerial synergy, it's not much. But we'll see if there are other cards that synergize with the aerial trait. And if there are, this could be a nice supporting piece in that deck. Another version of Falcon. This is a different Falcon, Joaquin Torres. 4 cost, 1 thwart, 2 attack. After Falcon attacks or thwarts, spend a lightning resource, ready another champion character you control. Well, if you could get 3 value out of that, then you could get value out of Falcon in the long term. It would take many times of doing that, though, to get value out of him. So I don't really think this ally is that good. I think he is a champion, so he'll have, and an aerial, so he'll have synergy potential, but you get too little for a 4-cost ally up front, really. If all you got was his attack and his stat and his jump block for 4, that'd be pretty bad. And a lot of turns you don't really have an extra resource, but you could get 3 value out of this if you're using it in Ironheart, because she has her 3 defense or her 3 attack, or her 3 thwart, or her 2 attack. So in the long term, over a very long game, you could get good value out of this, but nothing exceptional. And probably this would be one of the first allies that I would cut from a Champions or an aerial deck. Patriot, 3 cost, 2 thwart, 1 attack. After Patriot enters play, choose a champion character. That character gets +1 to each of its basic powers until the end of the round. Well, you're probably only going to be able to make use of one of those unless you also have Falcon on the table. This ally is pretty lackluster. I would only run this if there's really strong champion synergies, because I don't think he provides enough value for his cost. The allies in this hero pack, really nothing to speak of. Go all out, 2-cost event, requirement, lightning resource. Exhaust your hero, deal damage to an enemy equal to the total of your hero's thwart, attack, and defense values. Well, for Riri Williams in version 3, that would be 8 damage for 2 costs, but you have to exhaust her. It's not that good given the requirement that you have to exhaust your hero to do this. So it's like 8 damage, but also -2 damage because you don't get to exhaust you don't get to use your hero. So it's like 6 damage. So it's okay if you use it with Ironheart version 3. Anybody else, it's not really that good. So it's okay. It's acceptable. I guess the one use that would make it a little better than that would be retaliate against retaliate villains. Because instead of doing an attack plus an attack event, you're just doing one attack event where everything's combined, so you have the number of retaliate damage you take. Yeah, it's alright. Push ahead, 3-cost event. So this is the thwart version. Remove threat from a scheme equal to the total of your hero's thwart, attack, and defense, and it's more expensive. Thwart cards always tend to be. Given that you have to exhaust your hero, yes, you could remove 8 threat, but it'd be -3 for Ruri. So it'd be like 5 threat. 3 cost for 5 threat is nothing special. I wouldn't run it. No thanks. Too much cost. If it costed 2, yeah, maybe, but it doesn't. Morale boost. 1-cost event. Choose a hero. We've seen this before. Till the end of the round, that hero gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, +1 defense. Have we seen this before? I can't remember. So this is a card that's supposed to like enable push ahead or go all out, but if you have to play an inefficient card in order to enable or make another card efficient, it's not really that good, and that is the case here because +1 stats isn't that good for 1 cost, even if you could use it twice in a round. It's not actually +3 stats because you're not going to be able to take advantage of all 3 of those stats in 1 round. You probably could take advantage of 2, or pretty often take advantage of 2, but that's not that good for 1 cost. If it was +2 to all stats, that would be something. R&D facility, 3 cost support, requirement 2 science resources, uses 3 research counters. Exhaust R&D facility and remove 1 research counter from it. Choose a friendly character and play for +1 thwart and +1 attack till the end of the phase. For 3 cost, this is very overcosted. Even if you could ready that character and use it twice, that would still be overcosted, so I don't think this really ever gets used. It is a shield card, but doesn't really synergize, or doesn't add anything to the synergy, I should say. So I can see what they're trying to do with these leadership cards, and they're too expensive, unfortunately, for them to be viable. Power of Leadership, Agent 13, we've seen before. Snow Guard, 4 cost ally with 0 thwart and 0 attack. After Snow Guard enters play, place up to 3 shift counters here. While the shift counters here are equal to X, she gets +3 attack, and her attacks get overkill if there's 1, +3 thwart and aerial if there's 2, +5 hit points, and retaliate 1 if there's 3. If you could give her 3 and then take like 7 attacks from a 1 attack enemy, so deal 7 damage and then chump block, she'd be good, but that's hard to do. I realized that when I was trying to play US Agent, that it's really not that good. 3 thwart. That's okay. 3 attack with overkill is okay. She's a little bit overcosted for these abilities, and I think the reason is because she's versatile. But as I've said before in the past, versatility that comes at the expense of power isn't very good in solo. It gets better in multiplayer because you can look to fill in gaps in what the team is trying to do. But in solo, we need to be doing everything, or we need to be doing the things that we're doing with very high power levels, and Snow Guard doesn't provide that, so probably wouldn't play her in solo, but possibly in multiplayer. There'd be more of a use for her there. At least she's a champion as well. So we're getting a lot of champion allies here. It's just that none of them are very good. Vivian, 2 cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack. After Vivian enters play, choose an attachment, non-elite minion, or non-permanent side scheme. Until the end of the round, treat that card's printed text box as if it were blank. Okay. It does mean that with an attachment that has a requirement to remove it, you wouldn't be able to remove it because it would be blank. So you could deal with a non-elite minion that's hard to deal with, like as Retaliate or something. Or get around a side scheme, or... Yeah, there's definitely uses for this card. Her stats are expensive. She's expensive for just her stats, so you do have to take advantage of this hero response, or some kind of champion synergy, or android synergy, or aerial synergy, which we haven't seen a lot of yet. She's a utility niche card, and so they gave the Ironheart hero a lot of power, but the aspect and basic cards in this hero pack have been pretty underwhelming, I would say, in terms of their power levels. They're more focused on like utility or comboing. Go for champions. 3 cost event, max 1 per deck. Play only if your identity has the champion trait. Hero action. Each champion character in play cannot take damage until the end of the round. Oh, okay. Well, this has been recently errated with the most recent rules change, so that it now says removed from the game after you play it. So we do have to take that into account. Its value is pretty high if you can use it to block an attack with your hero and then maybe make like 2 consequential or 2 attacks with champion allies for 2 damage or so and avoid the consequential damage. And if you avoid any minion attacks as well, it gets better. I would play this in a champion deck for sure. And in solo and in multiplayer, it's incredible if you have other players playing champions. Very, very easy to get high value out of this in multiplayer, which is why it got errated, because you're having 4 players bring champion decks and then just go for champions every round, and it was OP, so they decided to nerf it. I'm not that big a fan of nerfing OP cards in LCG, a co-op LCG. Because players can just scale up the difficulty level. So if they were having fun doing that, I mean, why put a damper on that fun? Like, no, you're not having fun the way we want you to have fun in this co-op LCG. That's not a fan of that. Not a fan of that one bit. It makes more sense in PvP games. But in a PvE game, let players have fun if they want to. They have the choice not to do that if they don't think it's like fair to the villain decks or it makes the game too easy and they don't want to escalate the difficulty, but they have options. If players didn't like that, they could just not do it. The only reason you nerf a card as a developer is because the players are doing something that you, the developer, don't like, but in a co-op game, it's like, that's not a good design philosophy. I love the game, but that is not a good decision. Yeah, if players are doing something OP with the cards that you printed, let them. They have the choice not to do it if they don't like it. Or they can increase the difficulty to compensate. There's no competitive scene with this game that I'm aware of. If there was, this would make sense. Maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. In which case, this would make sense. But otherwise, this makes no sense to me, nerfing this card. It is very, very strong. It's going to be hard to get full value out of it in solo, though, because it requires basically 2 allies on the board, in addition to your champion hero. Or you have to like take a huge block from a hero, a villain. Like if you're fighting against Venom and he's built up 5 boost cards on him, and then you can go for champions to block that attack, then that's really, really good. Or if you know more damage is coming. So I would definitely play this in a deck where your identity has the champion trait, and I probably would try to get some champion characters in there as well to take advantage of it. This is a card you can build around, even though it's 1 per deck, because you'll have a huge turn when you play it. It's a great card. Disagree with the errata on it. Helicarrier we've seen before. Ingenuity. 2-cost upgrade. Play only if your identity has the Genius trait, so you can't play this unless you're in Alter Ego mode, because no heroes have Genius. 1 per player. Exhaust Ingenuity and generate a science resource. Okay. Well, the limitation of only being able to play this in Alter Ego means this doesn't really get played in solo, because we don't want to flip to Alter Ego more than once per game unless we have to, because terrible, terrible things happen in solo when you flip to Alter Ego. And we're into the obligation. The extra aspect cards, there's just 3 of them. We have Bombshell, 4-cost ally with 3 attack, 2 thwart. Play only if your identity has the champion trait. Divide damage from Bombshell's attack among each enemy as evenly as possible. She's understated for her cost, and the reason for that is the versatility of the card. And I'll say this one more time. Versatility at the expense of power isn't very good in solo. though it can fill holes in the team comp in multiplayer. Wasp, Nadia Van Dyne, another version of her, 2-cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack. Play only if your identity has the champion trait. Wasp ignores the guard keyword, patrol keyword, and crisis icon. So she's undercosted as well, or understated for her cost, because of the versatility once again. The 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage, that'll combo well with Go for Champions, but seems like all of these champion allies are understated, and maybe Go for Champions is the reason. And if that's the case, then I really disagree with the decision to errata it. But yeah, she's understated. We'll have to look at all the champions allies, but all of the allies in this hero pack have been understated to compensate for their versatility or their combo potential, I guess, but I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think the champion synergy is that good except for Go for Champions. So we'll have to see if there's other champion allies that make sense to include apart from the ones in this hero pack. Pinpoint, a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 2 attack. Play only if you have the champion trait. When a player card would be placed into a discard pile. From play, exhaust Pinpoint. Shuffle that card into its owner's deck instead. I don't assign any value to that. So we're just looking at his stats, really, which are underwhelming once again. But he does have the champion trait and the potential to combo with Go for Champions. So I guess to get full value out of Go for Champions, you have to play a lot of underwhelming allies. Let's see what other allies are available with champions. Well, we have Braun, the hero-specific ally for Ironheart. He's really good. Moon Girl. Moon Girl's very good. Nova. Nah, Nova's not that good. Yeah. Miles Morales is good. So there's a few options for champions heroes that are decent, but let's see, 1, 2, 3 allies enough for Go for Champions to have high value? I think probably not. That's a tough combo to set up, so you have to play some lackluster allies to make Go for Champions work, and that does degrade its value. And really doesn't. I really don't like the. I like the nerf even less, having seen all of the champions' allies. So you could play like Vivian as well, so maybe 4 champions' allies. And then I don't know if you want to play any of the lackluster ones. Maybe Snowguard if you're playing Go for Champions, but probably you just play Vivian and Moon Girl and Miles Morales, and then look to get value from Go for Champions in a turn in which the boss is really going to hammer you. That's probably how I would play that. And once again, this errata shows a focus on multiplayer at the expense of the solo experience, which is unfortunate for me, a solo player. I do play multiplayer as well, but yeah, well, Ironheart is a very good hero. I think she's likely to be an S tier hero, but we'll need to test her to figure it out. The aspect cards and the basic cards included with her are a little underwhelming, but she's probably strong enough to buy the hero pack for her cards alone, and Go for Champions is like a new deck type and may get even better later if more champions allies come out. So I like this hero, and I'm looking forward to playing her and hopefully being able to make some progress on scenarios that I haven't been able to beat in the past. And thank you for watching.